Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek Bansal. Welcome again to my channel Learn Yourself Easy Solutions. In this video, I am going to talk on the product air quality meter, which is basically a carbon monoxide meter. And this meter is a road test review on element 14. This product for review is not given to me in hand. I am just making the video because it's a carbon monoxide meter and it's an air quality meter, so it's very important to know like what the air quality parameters it measures and how it works. So the particular product that I am going to talk on this is basically a Multicom Pro MP780892 air quality meter. You can see it's given here on element 14 road test review. Now clicking in on the what is the product, you can see the product is a MP780892. The temperature range, operating range is basically 0 to 50 degrees Celsius, and the relative humidity range is 5 to 99% RH, water vapor cannot condense. The carbon monoxide range that it measures is between 0 ppm to 1000 ppm. So there are a lot of things that need to be understand in this, like what is basically an RH, relative humidity, or what exactly the ppm means, the monoxide means, and how it's different from the carbon dioxide meter. The information that I am going to share or talk on this can be found very easily on the net or the books of the organic chemistry or the general chemistry, maybe a school textbook or a college textbooks like a Morrison Boyd or any other books. So these are basically my personal notes that I am sharing and talking on here. Now what is basically a carbon monoxide? Once it said a carbon monoxide, everybody knows, oh, it's a very poisonous gas, the poisonous gas, and person dies. That's only the understanding one has on the carbon monoxide. We also know that the carbon monoxide is a very important gas, like combustion or incomplete combustion. It's an air pollution. But what is basically, do humans produce carbon monoxide, or what it happens when it goes into the blood, etc. So I am going to talk on this at very length, and all this information is not, it's very known to anyone who is in the chemistry department or who is working in this field. So let's start. What is basically a carbon monoxide? We know carbon monoxide. So the carbon monoxide is a colorless gas. It's not only a poisonous, we only know that it's a poisonous. It is a flammable gas, colorless, odorless, tasteless. Now the thing that one doesn't understand, that the carbon monoxide is basically produced by the partial combustion, or we say that it's produced by an incomplete combustion. So incomplete combustion of the carbon containing compounds. What is basically the partial and the incomplete combustion means? When we are talking combustion in chemistry terms, or say the scientific terms, it is basically an exothermic redox chemical reaction between the reductant and then oxidant. The oxidant is here usually a oxygen which gets oxidized. So when it's an incomplete combustion, it's an incomplete partial combustion of the carbon containing compounds, when an insufficient oxygen or heat is there to produce carbon dioxide. So it can be said, and basically it is generally even said, that the carbon monoxide, we are only in the notion that human being takes oxygen, releases carbon dioxide, but even it is said that, and it can be because it can be said even by this definition, that the carbon monoxide is produced even by the organisms also, including humans, because it is the incomplete or the partial combustion of the carbon containing compounds when an insufficient amount of oxygen is present to produce carbon dioxide. Because basically, what is carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide is a covalent double bond to two oxygen atoms, whereas the carbon monoxide is a connected to an oxygen by a triple bond. So though carbon dioxide, if like even this user manual from the company has given that if this much ppm, just a second, I open the user manual. So we can see that the user manual from the company itself says that what is the effect of the carbon monoxide poisoning and the regulations. It clearly says that for the living areas, according to the Shire standard 62 to 1989, 9 ppm concentration of CO is taken as to be okay. Normal background 0 to 1 ppm. So the maximum 8 hours exposure can be up to only 35 ppm. But here it's clearly mentioned that if it crosses 200 ppm and so within 2 to 3 hours we get a mild headache, fatigue, nausea or a dizziness. And if it's an 800 ppm, it causes dizziness, nausea, convulsions, and the death within 2 to 3 hours. So the meter range is 1000. It's quite obvious that even after 800 ppm is basically an alarm to the death only. So more than 1000 would be not be a option to measure. Okay. So but the carbon monoxide is said to be like this way, like it's okay to 0 to 1 ppm or an 8 ppm according to the Shire standard of the living in the living areas. But it is said that it has an important role even in the biological role, like of phylogenetic kingdoms. The phylogenetic kingdoms basically, so the phylogenetic kingdoms or across like an R.H. Whittaker had proposed the 5 kingdom classification. There is even a 7 kingdom classification by Thomas Cavier Smith. So if what are basically these classifications are accordingly to the mode of nutrition, the thallus organization or the cell structure, phylogenetic relationships, the reproduction, and these relationships can be identified because it's a phylogenetic relationship. So by the similarities in the DNA, RNA, or the protein sequences, or the comparison of the anatomical features. So this is basically I am not going to go into the biology, but this carbon monoxide, it plays role across these things. Okay. So the carbon monoxide, the other name of the carbon monoxide is the carbonic oxide gas or the carbon protoxide gas. So these are the carbonous oxide or the carbonous acid gas, carbon 2 oxide. So these are the names for the alternative names are known for the carbon monoxide. And it is even referred as white damp, fire damp, powder gas, coal gas. Okay, so I have said that if I am going to say the parts per million ppm, that is basically measured by it. So the parts per million by volume, if I go by that, like the meter from the manual, I have said that above 800 ppm within 2 to 3 hours the death happens, and the effect is basically the dizziness, nausea, convulsion. But if you are going to say where it's basically produced, if we say in the natural atmosphere level, okay, by the natural atmosphere level, so the natural atmosphere level, it is basically done by the measurement of pollution in the troposphere by the, it's an instrument, a particular known instrument by NASA, MOPITT. So that says that okay, 0.1 parts per million by volume. That's the composition of the dry atmosphere. Okay, so in an average level of homes, if we are going to talk in the homes, because we are living, it's said that the carbon monoxide is even released by the humans. Okay, not only the carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide is also released by the humans. So how much an human actually releases a carbon monoxide is 0.5 to 5 average level. Here in the visual manual, it's up to the 9 ppm is mentioned according to the Shire standard. The Shire standard is an American society for heating, refrigerating and air conditioning engineer society. So above, like what is basically a carbon monoxide? It is even produced by the gas stoves in the homes. We have vehicles, vehicle exhaust. Now we have electric vehicles, that's known for the zero emission. It's something different that the emission is happening somewhere else. It's not a complete zero emission, but like if we have to go the exhaust vehicles for the any exhaust vehicle, it's said to produce up to from 5 to 15. So and the exhaust from the vehicles, we say automobiles, the earlier automobiles, these are BS4 or BS6, the earlier automobiles in the 70s or 1960s or 80s, it goes up from 100 to 200. We can say the exhaust of a car exhaust fumes can even go less than 1000. So we say that only in the terms of the vehicle exhaust we can have from 15 to 1000 level of ppm V, that's parts per million by volume. But if we are having an home wood fire, that gives 5000 ppm V. And if suppose we have an undiluted warm car exhaust without a catalytic converter, because if we are going to use a catalytic converter is less than 1000, but if we are not using a catalytic converter, the parts per million by volume goes to 30,000 to 100,000. That's in Indian standard simple language to up to 1 lakh. So the car exhaust fumes from 15 to 1 lakh if we are using a catalytic converter, because a catalytic converter is basically an exhaust emission control system. It converts the toxic gases and the pollutants from the internal combustion engine into less toxic pollutants by catalyzing a redox reaction. Okay, so the that's why it's known as a catalytic converter, because it does all these things by the catalyzing process. It's basically what is then the catalyst is that it is the process of increasing the rate of the chemical reaction. So from as we are living in the homes and we know we would be using a gas stoves and some modern vehicle exhaust, so we are going to see up to 15 by the standard guidelines. We should see up to 15. So and up to 9 is the basic general Shire standard. So we understand that the carbon monoxide is produced in the living areas. The high concentration of it causes death, and it's a toxic to the humans. The other source of the carbon monoxide is even the cigarette smoke, because even in the cigarette smoke we can have a significant concentrations. Because and how it impacts by reducing the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. So it interacts with the hemoglobin in the red blood cells RBC, and it prevents it from distributing the oxygen. That's why when we see somebody who's died from this carbon monoxide poisoning, we say that he has died from the lack of oxygen only. So this is the bad side of the carbon monoxide. And like in the beginning of my video, I have said that it is even produced by the humans, and it plays an important role in the biological process. Not only that, if we have to have a high standard of living, we say an iron metallurgy and the production of the steel, because these all involves in high temperature reactions in the blast furnace. So all this, not all this, basically particular these two, because these are required, these the humans need for their own higher standard of living. The carbon monoxide is basically needed in these blast furnaces. Like we know in the making of the steel, we need to produce a carbon monoxide, and the process is the reaction of the coke, that is like an heating the coal to a high temperature without air. So when the coke reacts with an oxygen, carbon monoxide is produced. So like in the air pollution case studies, we says that when the methane reacts with oxygen, okay, so when the methane reacts with oxygen, like if you have studied a chemistry or if the particular case studies, what they shows in that if it's basically two molecules of oxygen, then a carbon dioxide with water is produced. But if these two reactants, if we take a lesser oxygen present, and if we go to the combustion like 2CH4 plus 3O2, it gives an carbon monoxide. So the difference basically becomes in the the molar combination only of these two reactants, 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. Okay, because it's a CH4 plus, in the case of carbon dioxide, it's CH4 plus 2O2. So 1 to 2, twice as many moles of oxygen. And in the case of carbon monoxide, it's the formula basically on the left hand side equation is the 2CH4 plus 3O2. That's basically 2 to 3. That means it's a 1.5 times many moles of oxygen in this case. So like we say, okay, the methane is also a bad gas, but it even occurs naturally below the ground and under the sea floor. So this is basically the basic about what is basically the carbon monoxide. Like I have mentioned that, okay, there would be a gas burner in the home. So how it's now going to, the concentration is going to affect in human body. Let's say in human body earlier it has to inhale only an oxygen only. Now the human is also supposed to inhaling an carbon monoxide. So what will happen? It's going to be inhaled and it's going to react with the hemoglobin present in the red blood cells. So what it forms basically, the term that is used basically carboxy hemoglobin is used, COHB is used. And what it gives, it reduces the ability of hemoglobin to transport oxygen from lungs to the tissue of the body. Okay. So now COHB is formed because it's a carboxy hemoglobin, and the important factor is the concentration. If it is less than 1% blood, then there is no apparent effect. But even more than 1%, we can see the effect in the behavioral performance. 2 to 5% is known to affect in the central nervous system. That's an impaired of the time interval discrimination, visual acuity, and the brightness discrimination, the psychomotor functions. If it's greater than 5, we see the cardiac and the pulmonary functional changes. And 10 to 80 causes headache, fatigue, drowsiness, coma, respiratory failure, death. So these are basically, if these concentrations are going to build up in a home by say a cigarette only, by a gas stove only, and so these, and by modern vehicles which do lesser emissions. So it's important to know what is the percentage of carbon monoxide is happening. Like nowadays it's very becoming common, the cardiac failure, sudden cardiac arrest. Now even if you say in the if you are going to talk in the classification of the smoking only, we can categorize that some persons never smoke, passive smoking, some were ex-smokers, some are light cigarette smokers, some are moderate, some are heavy cigarette smokers. So the blood level, if we say, because the cigarette produces also carbon monoxide, so what is the blood level in those persons who never even smoked? The blood level percentage of the COHB is 1.3%. If someone is a moderate smoker, it's a 5.9%. If someone is a light smoker, it's a 3.8%. And if someone was an ex-smoker, it's 1.5%. So indoor pollution, it's not only necessary that you have to go to some industries, or you have to go stick beyond your car vehicle exhaust fumes, exhaust pipe only. It can cause by an indoor also, by gas burner smokers. Okay. Now basically we have got an idea what basically carbon monoxide does to the hemoglobin. We have come to know that what is basically then in hemoglobin. Hemoglobin in a biological terms or a biochemistry terms, it's a conjugated protein. The protein portion is called the globin, and the non-protein portion, that's called the prostatic group or the heme. So the heme contains 4 pyrrole groups. They are joined together with an iron, and so we are having an iron atom in the heme, that's a non-protein portion, that interacts with the oxygen. It forms a reversible complex with it. Okay, and the all red blood cells, they are broken down in the spleen and the liver. So this is basically I'm talking of like what basically an hemoglobin is. We understand that it is the hemoglobin, basically the protein in the RBC, in the red blood cells. And what it happens that these mature blood cells, they have no nucleus, neither they have DNA. So the mechanism, I hope may be understood by people, that the oxygen is carried due to protein hemoglobin. The hemoglobin is basically the heme contains the 4 pyrrole groups. They are joined together with an iron atom, and this globin protein it is hydrolyzed to amino acids, so they become the part of the amino acid pool, and then iron atom becomes iron storage protein, in biochemical terms called a ferritin, and the tetrapyrrole carbon arrangement is get degraded to bile pigments, that's basically eliminated in the urine and the excretion. So how the basically degradation of the heme gets, once because we are having an it will begin with the ring opening reaction with a single carbon atom removed. So this reaction has a very important characteristics, because we know that the molecular the reactant is the molecular oxygen, and the ring opening releases the iron atom, and now the product that contain an excised carbon is known as the carbon monoxide. Okay, and thus the carbon monoxide is produced by the humans, and this reacts with the functioning hemoglobin. It will form a carboxy hemoglobin COHB complex, and it will decrease the oxygen carrying ability of the blood. And this carboxy hemoglobin complex it's very stable, and this release to the lungs, this carbon monoxide is even released to the lungs, but it's a very slow process. So this is basically about carbon monoxide, and it's basically I was talking about the product, like why it's basically important meter, an air quality meter, because mostly we are having a carbon dioxide meter, why it's a carbon monoxide meter. So thanks for listening.